A lot of times when you work with creatives, they're going to have an idea and it's going to be this beautiful idea and it's their art. Let's be clear, they are creating art. It's very
Hmm.
personal. And
Yep.
they will come to you and say, okay, here it is. And you have to look at them and say, that's never going to work, and here's why.
Well, welcome, Amy Burrell.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, Amy, you are heading up to Tango here in Richmond as the CEO. So, what advice would you give to young creatives just starting out in their careers?
It's a great question. I would say remember from day one that you are your own brand. So everything that you put out there, that is absolutely a reflection of you and what you believe, who you are, how you operate, how you communicate. So I would say just keep that in mind because however you would like to be treated, that's how you should be putting yourself out there.
Great advice. So, you never aspired to be a CEO.
No.
And yet here you are. So
Yes.
what were your goals? What were your goals and dreams when you first set out to create your career, whether after high school or college? What were your thoughts around that?
So I got my degree in public relations. And when
Hmm.
I graduated, there weren't the grad schools that there are today. So, and I just, for me personally, didn't want to go further in my educational path. I
Yeah.
was ready to get out there and work and learn and make my mark. I had some short-term goals that were very much like I'd love to get promoted after a couple years. I went into the media planning and buying space, but I never really had the idea of running an agency. I thought I would get to media director role and I would just be happy with that.
Okay. Great. And so what was your experience when you first came out? I believe you were on the brand side first. Is that correct?
Yes, so I actually started on the client side in-house
Hmm.
at Circuit City.
Okay.
And at the time, they owned CarMax, which, as we know, did make it. So I learned so much in their in-house media department. And I, learned how to buy spot radio and television across the country. I had great teachers in that in-house environment. And then a couple years in, I got a phone call from a friend who had just moved over to the Martin Agency.
Hmm.
So he said, you should come on over. So I thought, oh gosh, am I ready to go to the agency side? People get laid off at agency and oh, it's so stressful. But it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I got to meet kindred spirits. I got to learn even more in the media space. Got to work on big brands like Geico and, have a lot of fun while doing it.
Okay. And then you decided to live outside of Richmond.
I did.
And so, how did that experience shape your perspective and approach to your work?
So I think like a lot of folks in their mid 20s, I was ready to get out of my hometown. And I was offered an opportunity down in Raleigh, North Carolina at a fabulous agency called McKinney.
Hmm.
And I was there for, gosh, over a decade. But it
Okay.
was my first time to be in a new city on my own, really figure out how to foster great relationships, really relied on my friendship network, and just continue to learn. I mean, I think that's the other piece of advice I would give people is we're all sponges, as we know. Really just take in all those different moments and learn from them, and then try to practice in your own style and in your own way, out into the world what you want that to be.
Hmm. And I love that you say we're all sponges. And I know that that term is typically given to people like right out of school, right? Like be a sponge. But have you found that you can be a sponge at any point throughout your career? I mean, whether for yourself or managing your team.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that I think is really important, especially in the industry that we're in
Hmm.
advertising and marketing. Nothing stays the same.
Right.
Every other month you have something new. And it really behooves you not to try and learn what those things are. It also allows you to grow and you can succeed. I learned how to run a company in my late 40s. So, you can have so many different opportunities that why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you stay open to all the new things?
So, how did you learn to run a company?
Gosh, I am so lucky that I was able to rely on those around me. I have an amazing team. They are all smarter than I am. That is by design. I believe in surrounding yourself with amazingly intelligent people who can complement your own skill set. I also had a great mentor who was the one that told me I should take the job. So
Okay.
for a couple months, I was able to, phone a friend and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And he graciously would give me wonderful advice without telling me how to do it. He would just say, think about this, think about that. And I think some of it's also just luck, learning from your mistakes. Everyone fails, but fail fast, learn from it, move on, and tackle the next thing.
Wonderful. So, you mentioned working at McKinney. What were some of the key lessons you learned during your 10 plus years there that have really stuck with you?
I learned how to work with all different types of folks. Um, Everyone they may have been data folks that didn't really communicate as well, but I could understand it, to wonderful creatives that pies the sky, sky's the limit, whatever those bad phrases are,
Yeah.
and trying to help them understand, could we really pull that off? To great strategists, thinking 10 steps ahead, not just thinking about what is the thing right in front of you, but think about how that's going to impact things way down the line. And I feel like I was able to kind of cultivate all those things and pack them away in my brain for every new adventure that I took.
Cool. So, what does work-life balance look like? What does that mean to you as the CEO of Two Tango, and how do you model that being an example for your team?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the years is I do not care if you're there from 9 to 5. If you are getting your job done, if you are doing the best that you can, if you are helping others in their journey to do the best that they can, if you are not causing any barriers for people to get what they need to get done, then I don't get fixated on if you're punching a time clock. And I found over the years that when you give people that grace and you give them that latitude, they are so passionate, and it frees them up and relieves the stress of all the other things that life brings to you that they don't have to worry about. If you have a doctor's appointment, if you have a hair appointment, if you need to go and run and go get your kiddo because they called you and they want to come home from school because they're not feeling well, that should not be something for you to stress about. That should be table stakes. You should be able to do that without having any kind of stress from work.
Okay. So, stress, that's an interesting topic. And we've heard how stress can affect your health and everything. But stress can also be a good thing, right? It can motivate you. What's your perspective of stress, and how have you used that in your life as a positive thing? And how have you managed it so that it's not a negative thing?
I think anyone that's been in advertising for more than a couple years knows that there is a certain type of person that thrives on that stress, that fast pace, that quick deadline, that challenge that you have to answer for a client or a colleague to help them. There's a real adrenaline rush to that. It's also a competitive industry. So there's a little bit of oh, I did it. I won. I got it.
Yeah.
With that, the flip side is I have found that you really need to be in tune with yourself so that it doesn't cause more harm than good. So you also want to make sure that you're making the time to have other things in your life outside of work, whether that's great friendships, relationships, hobbies, other things that you're interested in, side hustle. I think that those are really important so that you're not just, pigeonholed into, oh, you're just the greatest supervisor on the planet. I remember telling my brother, I don't want that to be on my epitaph. And I had this pivotal moment of, I don't want that to be what I'm known for. I want to be known as a great sister, a great daughter, a great friend, and eventually a great mom and a great wife. It's great that I'm a CEO. I have the luckiest job on the planet, but all those other things are just as much critical to me, if not more.
Okay. And so you must have had this realization a while ago, because I know that you do have a 14-year-old daughter. So I'm sure you're striving to be that great mom, which I'm sure you are. But any other realizations that you were able to bring into your role as a leader within your organization?
Sure. So about a year ago, I was feeling that pressure cooker of I'm sandwich generation. So I have an elderly mom, I've got my own daughter and my husband and a family, and I'm running this
Yeah.
company. And I had that moment of if I don't stop and take a break, and I mean a break right now, it's not going to go well for anybody. And so I talked to my leadership team again, fantastic group of women who I said, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to unplug for 2 weeks. If there's an emergency, of course, please come and get me. But
Right.
otherwise, you guys got this. And they were so appreciative that I did that. And I think it ended up having a bigger impact than I realized, that people understood it was okay to take a break. And it was okay to be honest about it.
Yeah.
I think that was the other thing, was that I was very candid about it. And I was open and honest. And I think when you're open and honest, you have to be prepared for everything that that means. But I got nothing but positive feedback on doing that. And that's truly the culture that we have cultivated at our agency.
That's wonderful. So you were able to acknowledge that you needed a break. You were able to speak up for yourself and create a boundary of 2 weeks, except, of course, if an emergency comes up.
Sure.
So sometimes we do carve out some time for vacation, family, even a day off to go see our kids' preschool graduation or high school graduation. But then what happens? We take our phone with us, right? Our virtual business or work with us. What are some things that you, if you care to share, around that 2 weeks that you did that you felt were pivotal for your change to come back and be refreshed, assuming that you did come back feeling
did.
like that 2 weeks was
Yeah.
what you really needed?
So I am a big believer that if you are going to take time off, whether you need it or whether it's scheduled, you need to unplug and take the time off. You are not doing anyone any favors by coming back and not having been completely refreshed by that time off. I think it's important for yourself. I think it's important for your friends and family. And I think it's important for your colleagues. The one thing that drives me crazier than anything is if someone says they're off, but then they're on their computer and they're chiming in and they're doing, so now you've created an environment where people don't know what's going to happen with work.
Right.
And you're also demonstrating to others that maybe it's not okay if I take off work or I'm completely unplugged, which is not okay in my opinion. It's very important. Also, the dirty little secret, the world is going to keep going.
Right.
If you take off work, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You got a lot of smart people that you work with. They're going to figure it out. And if they can't figure it out, they'll phone a friend, you know?
Right. Good. Do you recommend setting up anything as you are leaving to help set your team up for success?
Absolutely. So, anytime any of us take off for an extended period of time, we basically brief each other and we say, here are all the hot things that are going on that may or may not come up. And just as important are, hey, if this comes up, it can wait. So giving someone that information so that they understand if they see something that comes up, that they don't have to jump on it right away. Oh, Amy said that was okay. That's something that can wait until she gets back. Being proactive about things that are upcoming. So, there's some logistical things to running a business. Oh, I don't know, like payroll, things like that. And making sure that everyone is aligned and clear and everything. You can do so many different things with all the different tools and systems that we have to get ahead of things. So I think that, just as important is mapping out that plan, and just as important is doing a touch base when you get back. So when you get back, talking to everybody and saying, hey, how did everything go? Here's where we were with stuff. How are we feeling? What do I need to help pick up, and keep going from here on out? I think that that makes people feel, everyone loves a plan. It makes you feel better to know that, everything will be taken care of. It also alleviates some of that stress when you come back from being on a vacation. How many people have said, well, I wish I never went on vacation because now all this work is piled up. I think if you lock arms and rely on each other and you can spread some of that love, then you come back not so overwhelmed because there might be some things that got taken off the list while you were gone that may have needed to be taken care of.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen it too. Then other people, when they want to take off, the same thing happens for them, and it's so it becomes the pattern and part of the culture is you cover each other's desk while they're out.
It really does. And I think, again, it also goes back to it's okay to ask for help with that. It's in the spirit of camaraderie. And it also just continually lays down that foundation of a culture of, we help each other. You
Right.
need to make sure you're looking out for the person to the left, looking out for the person on the right, and helping them through whatever time they need.
Wonderful. So we've talked a bit about stress and so forth, but what mental tools or mindset practices have you used to advance your career and overcome challenges?
So I have gotten really good over the years at taking a beat. At when a situation comes up or when a project is happening or if there's a challenge that comes to say, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And also think about the flip side of it. What's the best thing that could happen? And realizing that there's a lot of different ways that you can tackle a challenge and be open to those and ask other people's advice. Ask what other people think because they may have a perspective that you didn't think about. And now you've basically laid down the foundation of true teamwork where you can tackle a problem. At the end of the day, I tell my team all the time, I want other people to give me their input and what their opinion is. I'm the end person that's going to make the call. And I am happy to make that call and I'm happy to stand by that call because I know I've done everything I can to vet out what different opinions might be, which I think is important to do.
Get the different opinions
Yep.
and then from that make the best decision. Anything else around that?
I'm a big believer in meditation and walking and clearing your head.
Yeah.
So there are definitely days where if you're in the middle of something and you're stuck or you feel like you've got too many inputs coming at you, too many emails, too many Slack messages, sometimes the best thing you can do is take a 10-minute walk and just walk away, take some deep breaths. It's amazing what some natural vitamin D can do for you. You come back and you're ready.
Great. Wonderful. So how has your leadership style evolved over the course of your career and what principles guide how you lead today?
I would say when I was early in my career and started supervising people, I was too much of a micromanager. And if you were to ask anybody today, they would not believe that about me. I was so caught up in understanding and having to know every single nuance and make sure it all got done and it got done right. And it was done on deadline and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
That I didn't allow people the runway to learn, to succeed, to fail, to pick themselves back up. And that is a huge opportunity to be able to do that because that's how you learn. That's how you figure stuff out. And it goes back to what's the worst thing that can happen? Anything is, I think, can be repaired and you can figure out the best path forward. So over the years, I also learned that I was taking on too much stress by doing that. So now I was taking on all these burdens that didn't need to happen. There's amazing people that you work with.
Yep.
So that was a huge lesson for me. So I think I learned quickly, I'm a pretty perceptive person, to understand what was someone's limit on a team. What could they handle and what could they not handle? And being very open to that. And truly, I think the other tool that I've honed over the years is not just to hear people, but to truly listen. When they say they got it, really pay attention to what do they got? What do they have?
Yeah.
What is it? And ask probing questions. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, they got it. They're good. Or, just realizing, is someone seem like they're struggling, they're not totally sure. And asking those thoughtful questions of, hey, let's talk it through together. What do you feel like the answer is? And letting people know they're not by themselves. If they need that hand, it's there. But otherwise, letting them do what they want to do. You may not end up going down the exact path that I would take, but the end result probably is going to be the same. So it doesn't matter. It's all your journey to do. And I think supporting team members to do that is really important.
So when you were evolving from what you liked to call the micromanager to the opposite of being a micromanager today, what were some of the early surprises that you received being able to let go and let the other person guide
I,
that
I,
task?
yeah, that's a great question. I found more happiness in my work and in my job. I found that my stress level went down, that I was able to enjoy other things outside of work. I wasn't constantly worried about work. I wasn't having the Sunday scaries, as we affectionately call them, getting ready for the week.
Right.
Yeah, it was great.
Good. That's fantastic. And that's enough to motivate you to change or someone else to change. So, what does it mean to you to be recognized as a top leader in Richmond as Ad Person of the Year? And how do you hope to inspire the next generation of creative professionals?
That's a great question. I would say what it means to me is it's a very humbling thing to be awarded this wonderful thing in the best marketing and advertising community, I think, in the country. To see that the hard work and my style and how I love to collaborate and how I love to help teach people how to get ahead in this crazy business of advertising was truly, it's an honor. It's an honor. I think that, it goes back to a little bit of the advice that I would tell people is just be a good person. If you're a good person and you work hard and you try hard and you're doing the best you can, you will be rewarded. I don't think that being a jerk is the way to get ahead in this world. And I think we live in a time where kindness needs to go in order for us to really get ahead. I feel like being kind is the right path forward. There's not enough kindness right now in the world. So I think it behooves us not to be.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I see, the kids, like the younger generations, maybe not the creative professionals we're talking about, but even my own children at school, they talk so much about kindness. And it seems like bullying has been a huge topic. It's almost like it's, really sprouting its head for attention and I think for change. But, when you're referring to the workplace, what are some examples that you can give of choosing kindness rather than the alternative?
I have worked at places and been in places where yelling was allowed. People are frustrated, they're yelling, they're arguing, there's a point they're trying to make, and it escalates.
Yep.
I don't think there's a place where we need to be yelling. I think it causes an environment that's toxic. I don't think it allows you to have the environment for creativity and for thoughtfulness and to, quite frankly, be able to rely on another to succeed. I think that when you think of people you're working with, one thing I'll tell people, like when we're working with clients and maybe there's a tough client meeting that happens, you never know what that person was experiencing right before that meeting or right before that phone call. So cut them some slack, give them some grace. It may not be directed at you at all. Someone told me early on that it wasn't personal, and it's true. There's a lot that, can happen in the workplace that may have nothing to do with you. And so you just kind of have to take the high road. And my mother always taught me kill them with kindness. It'll drive someone crazy if they're not a kind person, but it's the right path. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, kindness is very important, and it's interesting. What I'm hearing you talk about is really emotional IQ, which is something that I feel like we as a society have been talking about more and more, which is good, and we'll continue to equip our children and ourselves and next generations with more tools to be able to navigate the world and our emotions in a higher place and a higher level. So that's a wonderful point that you made. So what advice would you give to creatives who are struggling to find their voice or confidence in their abilities?
To keep trying, and also I can't express enough how important it is to find a mentor. It really does help, especially early on in your career, that someone that can help guide you, because you don't know what you're doing. None of us did. Some of us still don't today. There are days where I
Right.
wonder what I'm doing. Just to have a mentor that you can bat around ideas or say, I feel like I'm not getting ahead. I don't know why. Or I'm scared to speak. I hear a lot of creatives, they're scared to speak up in a meeting, that their idea may not be taken seriously, or it's not a good idea. So why would I ever raise my hand? But you have to keep putting those ideas out there, because one of them's going to stick and it's going to be brilliant. You never know which one it's going to be. You also have to rely on your teammates, that they may find a nugget of an idea that you have and help you make it even better, which, how cool is that? So I think also recognizing you can be confident without being egotistical. So, it's okay to have confidence. It's okay to say, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. But don't come across as a jerk, and don't come across that you know everything, because I can guarantee you we're all learning every day and you don't know everything.
And so you mentioned mentorship. And I know in addition to heading up to Tango, you also head up AMA Richmond, which is starting the mentorship program there. So outside of wonderful organizations that offer mentorship programs, what are some other ways that you would recommend getting a mentor?
I would say if there are people that you see that you like what they're doing, reach out to them. If there are people that there's a company that you would love to work for, reach out to them and see if they're open to having coffee or building that relationship. And if they're not, the next question is, do you know anybody that is? Because they may not have the time, but they may know someone that is completely open to that and able to do it. So don't give up. Keep asking. Because, there's always great opportunities for people to share their emotional intelligence and help people get ahead. And you'll find the right person when they truly want to be your champion.
Great. So can you share a time when you had to overcome self-doubt or imposter syndrome, and how did you push through that?
So one of the things that we do in advertising a lot is new business, and you do new business pitches. And I was asked relatively early on in my career to be in a new business pitch. And it became very clear that I was asked to be in it because I was a woman. And that was the main reason. We
Was it
didn't
a
have enough.
brand that
We didn't. What's that?
was it a brand that was
It was
more
it was a brand we
applicable
were going after.
for women?
No, it was just a brand we were going after, but the pitch
Okay.
team didn't have enough women.
Oh,
So it
okay.
was a bunch of guys that were going to be pitching this business, and I think they looked at each other and thought, we don't have any women in the room because we didn't have any women leadership at the time. So I was asked to join the pitch team, and it was tough because it wasn't that I was asked because of my knowledge, it was because of my gender. And so that kind of cut me at the knees right away in terms of my confidence. But I had enough great people on that pitch team that absolutely supported me. And they would hear me go through rehearsal and speak, and they would say, she's got it. She's got it. And they would make sure to tell me that. So that was something early on that was like, I thought, no way. We're in an age where that doesn't happen. No, unfortunately, it can happen. Even at I've worked at great places. It can happen.
So what was that experience like? How did the pitch go and how
We
did you feel
won.
afterwards?
Yep, we won, which was fantastic. And after
Great.
that, I had showed that I could do what needs to get done. And, I was asked to be on more and more opportunities like that, which was fantastic. And I was also able to take that experience and teach others. And I also was much better at raising my hand and saying, let's make sure we have the right people in the room for the right skill set, no matter what.
Wonderful. And do you feel like that moment contributed to the acceleration of your career, to your role now?
I think it gave me an appetite for what I really loved doing, which was talking to people and trying to solve problems and being in a fast-paced environment. It kind of was like, oh, I drank the tea and now I want more of the tea. So that was something that told me, yeah, you're in the right field because I had no idea what I wanted to do when I got out of college. So it definitely was over the years of getting those great experiences that kept me moving forward.
So how early was this? Was it shortly after college then, would you say? Or
It was probably, let's see, when did I graduate? It was in the early 2000s.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
within 7, 10 years
yeah.
of
Oh,
graduating.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even 5. Okay. Yeah, and the reason I ask is that sometimes you mentioned that an opportunity presented itself. It wasn't necessarily the most attractive opportunity just because clearly the motive behind it wasn't the most empowering, right? It
Hmm.
was based on your gender, maybe not your capabilities, even though clearly a lot of the people that were making this decision felt that you were capable.
Hmm.
But being able to say yes and step into that, step out of your comfort zone,
Hmm.
did help you to realize that you loved it. It
Hmm.
gave you, it reinforced that you were in the right career, and it gave you an appetite to continue to do experiences like that.
Hmm.
So, and that you could give back to others.
Yes,
So it just shows that sometimes opportunities aren't presented in a bow.
absolutely. And you never know where they're going to be. And you may not even know it's an opportunity when you're in it, but to do the best that you can with anything that you're dealt
Right.
is a good way to look at it. I also learned early on that there's always an answer. You don't have to say no right away. It's okay to say no, but saying, well, let's think about that. Let's figure this out. It doesn't have to be a hard stop or a hard go, quick go. It could be, well, maybe there's a different way that we can look at this. A lot of times when you work with creatives, they're going to have an idea and it's going to be this beautiful idea and it's their art. Let's be clear. They are creating art. It's very personal. And they
Yep.
will come to you and say, okay, here it is. And you have to look at them and say, that's never going to work. And here's why. But you don't say that. You say, this is really amazing. Maybe we should think about it this way. Maybe we can think about it that way. And here's why I'm thinking that way. Make sure you let people know this is where I'm coming from. And sometimes that'll go well. Sometimes it'll be a little painful at first, but eventually you get to the great, result that you're looking for.
So it sounds like the pause. The
Hmm.
pause can be very powerful.
Hmm.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Good. So, how do you foster a culture of innovation and creativity at Tutango, as well as encourage your team to take risks?
Well, gosh, that's a great question. Um, I think some of it is we feed off of each other. So we get excited about things and we get excited when someone learns something new or tries something new. And we share a lot. So we're big fans of sharing knowledge and being, humans in this world. We're all consumers. So you don't have to be the demographic for a certain brand to not appreciate what someone is doing out in the world. We do a lot of sharing. We have Slack channels that blow up like crazy with all the good stuff. So there's a lot of that, and I contribute to that. So I don't. I believe it's important for me to also be a person that is, part of those conversations. Everybody can have an opinion. So I encourage that, and we kind of feed off each other, which is fabulous.
That is great. And I love that you contribute as well. You don't let them just kind of go off on their own. You're setting an example. So that's clear. That's been clear throughout our conversation that you really do set an example, which is powerful.
I try. I think that, people want a leader and they want that leader to be hopefully approachable. People can say they have an open door policy, but it's truly walking the walk, talking the talk that makes it work.
Great. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in growing Tutango, and how have you navigated those?
I think a couple things. We were known as a healthcare marketing firm for 35 years. And so it was breaking out of that. We made a concerted effort to diversify the industries that we wanted to go after. And when you do that and you open yourself up to that, you also then have the opportunity to attract new talent. So that was the second thing that we did was we needed to have, smart strategy, creative chops. So we made that change as well and built up our creative department with a whole new team, which has been amazing and successful. And also having great leadership. So over the past 3 years, we've built up a leadership team across all the different disciplines at our agency that complement each other, challenge each other, have the right attitude, and truly believe in growing the business and moving it forward.
Okay, that does sound like quite the feat. And I'm glad that you were able to put the right people in place because, people, like
Everything.
people are the agency, right?
Absolutely.
How would you, because I've heard people talk in the past as they're looking for roles with my background in recruitment, that they really want to find an organization that invests in the people, is not just all about the bottom line, even though it's challenging, right? Because it's a business. And so the bottom line is what keeps the business going,
Absolutely.
but so do the people.
Absolutely.
So how would you say that, being able to balance those two of making sure it's that you're meeting the bottom line, that the bottom line looks really good and attractive, but also that you're investing in people?
We have done, I think, a phenomenal job of putting a few things in place that, from a business perspective, can be very attractive to talent. So we had this little thing called COVID that happened, and it taught us a lot. For our agency, it taught us that we could work in different environments and not lose the true DNA of our culture. We were still very connected with one another. So that opened up an opportunity for me to say, well, when we all go back to the world that we knew, let's try hybrid. Let's see what happens. I'm a big fan of testing and learning and trying. I'm very transparent with the team when we put something in place. We're going to do this, But if it doesn't work, or to your point, if something happens with the business where we need to course correct, then we're going to do that because I want to make sure that this family is taken care of. You know, we've got a great benefit package. We optimize it year after year. We try to pay the best we can, but you know, that can't always be the case. So we try to make sure that everything else that goes into that package really matters. And I think, you know, we've got a wide range of folks that work with us. I think they would say the same thing, that it's the culture, but it's also, you know, the brass tacks of having a great benefit package so that they can have a great life. Because at the end of the day, I want these people to be happy. I want them to want to come into work every day. I want them to enjoy the time while they're there. And I also want them to be proud of the work that they're doing.
Great. Anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I would say, you know, be kind. I would say the other thing that I do is have a dance party every day. And that just brings joy for a couple minutes. So whenever you're having a bad day, just put on some Prince and dance your booty off and you'll be happy.
Is that who your preferred musician is, Prince?
He's up there for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he has some amazing hits. So to hear from more empowering and inspiring creative professionals, be sure to check out this video. And if you want to be alerted each time we post a new podcast, just be sure to hit that subscribe button. You can do it. I believe in you.